So how are website applications actually made? Now, what are some examples of web applications? For example, WordPress. You might use WordPress for blogging. It's a blogging application and it's actually a website application. But can you give another example or few examples of what a website application is?
Many websites that you've seen out there, right, even like let's say a restaurant website, is usually a web application because behind the scene they allow you to do the booking, right? And also, of course, eBay, Lazada, those are e-commerce web applications. And then even a smaller scale websites like Lead, right? Yeah, we are relatively smaller because we are not serving that many users and concurrent members at the same time. But we are actually a complete web applications where we have content management, we have emails, and then we have all payment integration and also analytics as well.
So basically, a website application or web application is something that has all this front end, back end stuff that happens in one. It's not just a static page.
Correct.
But there's a lot of functions they can do with it, right?
Correct. So the opposite of static is dynamic. So there's a lot of dynamic content generated based on the users that are visiting, based on the query, based on the specific keywords, and not just static websites like the Web 1.0 that we used to live in.
Even Facebook is a web application.
Yes,
right?
It's a large large web application that is specially used for social media.
Right. Okay, but what I'm interested today is to understand, how are web applications made? How are they made inside out?
Sure, let's talk about it, but that is still a little bit too broad. Is there any particular web application that you're interested, especially as a digital marketer?
I use WordPress a lot.
Okay, so you use WordPress all the time, right? So let's talk about WordPress. Now, as usual, before we talk about every single thing that we are building, you need to know what are the ingredients. Now, in fact, to build a web application, the ingredients and tools that you need are very simple. First of all, you just need a code editor, right? I personally love to use Visual Studio Code because it's cross-platform. So you can use it on Mac, you can use it on Windows, and if not, you can also use Sublime, which is a very popular code editor as well. But no matter what, right? Okay, you can even use Notepad++ if you're on Windows platform, but no matter what, don't use Notepad, okay? Yeah.
So it all starts with a code editor.
Yes, so
right?
you just need a code editor, a simple one, to help you to edit all the files that you need.
So to answer me like I'm 5 years old, right? Let's say I do not know anything about web development, right? So everything is done within this code editor. That's all.
Yeah. You just edit those things like you are editing a normal text file. As simple as that. That will be a starting point.
Okay.
And the reason why I'm saying that you need to use Visual Studio Code, for example, because it has all the syntax highlighting, IntelliSense, it will prompt you when you have errors, and then it help you to spot all the you can easily use it to debug.
Right.
Yeah. So it helps you to write codes more efficiently.
So we have the code editor. Now, what's the next thing we need?
Okay, so after you have write your code, you need a place to view your website or web applications, right? So therefore, you just need a browser. Okay, so a common browser everybody will have on their computers will be Safari, Chrome, or even Internet Edge. Now, if you are developing a web applications for your normal, depending on who are your users, right? Normal household users, these trees are okay. Now, if you are developing a web applications for corporates, for enterprise software, you might need to use the latest version of Internet Explorer, for example, because most companies have some sort of securities, and those are the restrictions lah.
So all we need is just code editor
and a browser.
And the browser. That's it. That's all that's needed to build a web application like Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where you should start.
All right. So we have started with the code editor and browser.
Yeah.
I think most people have that on the computers already,
Yes.
right? Okay. What is next then?
Okay, now once you have these two ingredients or your tools ready, we are going to build the web applications with 4 components, right? Okay, now for most people, especially if you are more of like yourself, right, a more visual person, you are not like myself, which are more of an engineer, you should start building your front end. Okay, basically front end stands for your HTML, your CSS, and also your JavaScript.
Basically what they see in front, right?
Correct.
So the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the language
Yes.
to code out what people see on the front end, like the pictures, the
Correct.
Images and everything else.
Yeah, so HTML defines the structure of your page, like where's the paragraph, where's the division, where should you draw a line, and CSS used to define the look and feel of the
Color,
the color,
size.
the font size, and some of the text effects, alignment, margin, paddings, etc. And then lastly, the JavaScript part is to help you to decide what happens when there are some events. For example, what happens when people click on a particular button, what happens when they mouse over a certain link.
Then it pops up or it fills up.
Correct.
So that is done with JavaScript.
Right.
So we have covered the front end. So
Yeah.
HTML would be the skeleton frame of the website. CSS, cascading style sheets, right?
Yes.
Is for sort of the makeup of the website.
Yeah, the cosmetic.
The cosmetics to make it look good. And then we have JavaScript, which adds interactions
Yeah.
to the website. When you click on the button, what happens and all that. Okay, so that's on the front end, right? So now we have a site, maybe WordPress, right? Let's say we're going to build WordPress. So we have this front end that looks good right now. It has the text, the CSS, and also JavaScript interactions. What is next then?
Okay, so once you have your front end ready, right, you actually need to work on the second part, which is your back end. So what back end does is it handles everything that your users don't see. Now, for example, in WordPress, what do we do usually? We want to create a page or we want to create a post, right?
Yes.
And then once we have created the post, and we need to store it somewhere. Okay,
Yes.
so these are the jobs that is done on the back end side. So it helps you to interact with the databases, it helps you to load the data that you want to display, and sometimes you type into the search box and then it goes and retrieves some of the things to display. And remember, in WordPress there's these cool features that you can choose the layout, right? Even with the same piece of content with different templates, different layouts, and render differently. These are all done in the backend.
Right. Okay, so I want to understand a little bit more of the context of WordPress, right? So if you use WordPress before, WordPress on the front end you see is the blog, templates and all that, right? On the back end you might find an editor.
Correct.
So how is the editor built?
Okay, so the editor itself is actually written. The front end, the look and feel of the editor is still
HTML, CSS,
JavaScript.
okay.
But let's say the login functions, right, and then all the plugins, etc., are actually written using a programming language called PHP. Yeah, so PHP helps to handle all those things, including your login, logout functions, and loading the templates, loading the plugins, and handling all the different interactions between different components, like for example, exchanging informations and rendering the site.
Right. So the behind editor where you click in through all the menus is also part of HTML, CSS. JavaScript, and the functions that brings you from the front end to the back end editor is PHP. Right. Okay. So now we have the front end. We have the back editor part, back end with the logic and all that. Now, what else do we need?
Okay. Now, Ruben, if you have your front end and your logic done properly, right? Remember just now I said we need a place to store our data. Let's say you wrote a blog post or you created a page, right? Where should we store those data?
So what I understand is when we build something like this, we would have stored it inside the computer as we work on it, right? But we somehow have to push it up somewhere, right? And that would be
your database.
The database.
Yeah. So usually when you are working on a single page, right, everything that you type is just it just exists temporarily inside your browsers. Okay. So sometimes if you accidentally press like F5, if it's not pushed to the database, then you lose everything, and then you have to start working it over again. Yeah. So that's why database is an important place for you to store all the data that you want to put in the system. Yeah, so for example, if you have written a blog post, then this blog post should be stored inside the database.
Okay, so every single data point of the web application has to be stored in a database.
Yes, and now remember earlier on we talked about the differences between static and dynamic websites, right? So let's say last time when we don't have a CMS system and we open a restaurant, we build a website, we have to go in and manually edit the price, edit the name of the dishes, or what are the top 5 selling products. Manually. But now you have a CMS, all this information will be retrieved from the database, and then it will show you what are the top 5 or best-selling items, for example. Or if you are using WordPress to build an e-commerce store, let's say WooCommerce, right? Then it will help you to check with the back-end system, say, oh, do we still have any stocks? Or is this product currently under any special discount or promotion, for example?
Right. And what's a good place for a database?
Usually we will use MySQL, so it's an open source and free database. Otherwise, you can also use Microsoft SQL. That one you have to pay a little bit of licensing. These are the two good places to store your structured data. Now your data that's relational and in a tabular form, usually we'll use SQL. But if you have some free form data or a little bit unstructured data, you can also try MongoDB or Firebase.
Okay. All right. So we have the front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We have the back end, the JavaScript and also PHP for login and all that. And we have databases to put in our our blog entries and all that structured data.
Your content.
Right. And what's the last thing? The fourth one?
Now you have everything ready. The last thing is for people out there on the internet to be able to access your website, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, your whole system will be just stored on your local computer, your whole web applications.
Right.
Now, therefore, you need a place called the hosting services. Right? You need to host it somewhere. Yeah, you need to host it on a server that is exposed or connected to the internet. So if you remember, right, we used to rely on services like HostGator or GoDaddy, these sort of services to help us to host our websites, and then it comes with a nicely done admin panel called cPanel, right?
Yes, cPanel.
Yeah. So last time we used to be able to upload our pages there using FTP, and that's quite handy. But with that sort of convenience, you don't have that much of a freedom. Basically, you can upload a little bit of the script files, a little bit of HTML, CSS, but that's about it. If you want to do anything beyond that, you can't.
Okay.
So if you want to do something beyond that level, you need to use something that's called cloud hosting.
Okay. So what's the difference between I believe the HostGator GoDaddy is more to shared hosting.
Yes.
And managed hosting.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So they're like you rent a place in the shopping mall, right? So everything is nicely done for you. You have your shop logs, you have your security guards, you have all your electricity, internet, all well connected. But you don't have the freedom. So everything you have to follow the hosting service providers.
Okay.
Yeah. At their dismissal.
I see. And with cloud hosting, we get the advantage of doing things on our own.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
So if you use a cloud hosting provider, let's say AWS, DigitalOcean, or Google Cloud Platform (GCP), right?
Okay.
You are basically like renting a mini servers on their cloud, but then you have all the freedom, but also you need to do everything on your own. Basically, you need to set up your own email services. Remember that? Right. Yeah. You have to set up your IP address, DNS, domain name, and wire things up all manually by yourself.
Right. Okay, so those are the four things, right? Okay, let's recap them again. So we have the front end, which is the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. We have the back end, which is PHP and also JavaScript, right? That's for the behind parts of what people don't see on a website, right? The third one, we have the databases, right? We need to put in data from our web application to a database.
Correct.
And then we have the fourth one, right? Which is the hosting, right? Either you go for a shared managed hosting for a small time application, or if you are planning to host a large application, you want to go to cloud.
Yes,
right?
Especially when you plan to scale your websites in future.
So those are the four elements needed to build a web application, no matter what kind of application, right?
Yes.
They always fall down to these four disciplines or four main areas of understanding or study, I would say.
Yeah. So these four components are used everywhere, whether you are building a simple website like the lead.io, or your restaurants, or your booking website, or you want to build something as big as Airbnb, eBay, Lazada, Google, Facebook. The only thing that differs is the scale.
The scale.
Yeah, the scale is different.
So okay, if our audience today want to start building their own web applications, what kind of web applications would be good for them to start before we end this?
Okay, now from our experience in teaching web development, right, I believe that most of you will start off with things like to-do lists, or image gallery like Instagram alike, or they can start building something like a booking application, because these are the applications that will
uses the four components.
Yeah, uses the four components and give you a lot of practical experience in handling real-world use cases as well, because you really get to practice front end, back end, storing data, and also how to put it out on the internet for people to use.
And once they understand these four components, they can take this and build anything that imagination can bring them to, right?
Yes, the only limit is your imagination.
Alright, so you gotta get started somewhere, right? So build something like a booking system, a web application booking system using the four components, And from there, you can build into a different types of web applications that you can imagine from there. So I hope this video helps you. If you have questions about the 4 components, right? Do you still remember them? The 4 components, let us know in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Follow us on Facebook. Visit our website www.thelead.io for more content and also tips and tutorials like this.
Alright, see you in the next video.
See you then.